Okay, today is probably going to get me demonetized and knock me out of the self-certification program on YouTube yet again, which I only just managed to get back into, but I can't help myself, so I'm making the video anyways. Basically, the wokes are eating each other, and having had them come after me a few different times in the past, well, let's just say, I'm not sad. Here's the thing though. I don't want this to just become some sort of haha look at all their drama type video, because that doesn't really help anyone or do anything most of all. So instead I will look at both the micro and macro levels and try to outline why this was and is the inevitable climax of a hypersensitive woke environment. It all starts with Zombie Kills. I'll just call her Zombie, it's easier. Zombie has a long history in the industry of leveraging race and victimhood in order to achieve her goals. Say what you want about her methods, but one thing is abundantly clear here. It works, and she's very, very good at it. One of the highest profile instances we can look to is the PS5, when Zombie decided to publicly call out Sony for having a lack of representation when it came to who they chose for free consoles. This didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Hardware is hardware. The specs, capabilities, or other intrinsic qualities of a console don't change based on the perspective of the reviewer, and unlike a subjectively interpreted storyline or narrative, what you bring to the table in terms of lived experience, that seems to be a typical buzzword these days, means less than nothing. The console is what the console is, and you are, or what you are, your perspective, what you bring to the table, is worthless outside of articulation, technical expertise, and a mastery of language. Despite that immutable fact, her ploy to obtain free merchandise absolutely worked, and Sony shipped her a PS5 console. In the end, not really a big deal. Someone wanted free products, and they leveraged whatever they could in order to obtain them. That's the lay of the land in the gaming industry, at least right now. The world keeps on spinning. It does. It isn't a big deal. However, it establishes the foundation moving forward that Zombie is acutely aware of her ability to leverage race and gender in order to achieve career milestones. Overall, this particular series of events had drastically positive results for the rest of Zombie's career on Twitch. At first, the response skewed negative because people rightly highlighted the absurdity of saying we need more representation in the group of people that get free consoles for the purpose of a review, from someone who had no history of hardware analysis, purely based on race and gender. But in response to this, legacy media spun up their turbines and produced a flurry of articles that showered Zombie with praise and positioned her as a leader on the entire platform fighting for equality and justice. That position paid off, and it paid off big. Zombie grew substantially in unison with all of her media coverage, witnessing metrics that far exceeded anything she had previously seen, and somewhere, somehow, that growth must have resonated with her, because the tactics of leveraging victimhood for personal gain became more and more intense. Soon after, she spearheaded a campaign to remove the PogChamp emote from Twitch entirely. In the aftermath of January 6th, the emote's original creator said things that she disagreed with. And where you fall on that issue from an individual perspective, the issue of what he said and whether or not it was worth banning his likeness completely and in perpetuity on the entire platform or not, is mostly irrelevant because the ultimate result was that Twitch, keep that in mind, Twitch, that's important for later, caved in to this demand and removed the icon. Zombie was on a distinctly positive upward growth trajectory, gaining more and more media attention with more and more followers in tow. But that would all come crashing down. Having established that she was an extremely vocal advocate for cancel culture, often rebranded these days as accountability culture by those who believe it is a good and moral way to effect change, her actions in the space would soon become the target of exactly that. Except, it wasn't going to be just her. Now it's time to meet Girl from Canada. Girl from Canada is what many people would probably call, in the most pejorative way possible, a typical games journalist. Her modus operandi seems to be attacking men and claiming victimhood for herself, other women, and other marginalized groups whenever possible. However, these spheres of victimhood, as I like to call them, don't always overlap. For context, she is well known in certain gaming circles owing to her frequent, and very often confusing, takes about the industry. She is one of the more high-profile figures, at least lately, who will maximize accusations of prejudice or unfair treatment especially, most frequently that is what it is, in a public forum in order to gain sympathy or elevate her own standing. That's why this matters. Now, Girl from Canada has, in fact, deleted her entire account in the aftermath of all this, so I can't actually reference anything from her profile directly. However, as a workaround, Sophia Narwitz has a thread that documents the majority of all these interactions that took place, so I can just work off of that. And I'll link her social media profiles down below for those that want to drop a follow. But before diving into all that, I want to explain the mechanics of what is happening here and make the case that this will only continue with new targets in new communities in perpetuity. This will go on forever, or until they all collapse. Basically, Victimhood has kind of become social currency. We can see the most obvious evidence of this with a scenario like Zombie Kills, leveraging identity for free consoles. And in the abstract, victimhood can equate to increased exposure, media credibility, or even social power. It's not a guarantee, okay? This isn't a magic ticket to fame and fortune, but it's an effective contemporary tactic when trying to become a social media influencer. With that in mind, there are spheres of victimhood which encompass certain groups and often overlap. Belonging to one sphere lets you claim victimhood at the hands of the patriarchy or the ruthless male gamers. Belonging to another sphere lets you claim victimhood at the hands of systemic racism, unconscious bias, or the bigotry of a long-standing male-dominated heterosexual or cisgender space. The list is very long. However, not all spheres are equal and not all spheres align completely. Girl from Canada obviously forgot or never knew in the first place that this was the case and proceeded to respond when Zombie Kills made blanket comments or statements about white women. Now, keep in mind that Girl from Canada has actively, constantly advocated for both herself and others under a wider, more all-encompassing sphere of victimhood, which groups many of these individual communities together. Example, quote, "We need to talk about this. Game journalists, especially women and people of color, are receiving hate just for reporting. I'm concerned and we cannot just allow certain accounts, Colin, Sophia, others, to continue to do this." Follow-up, "We need to call this behavior," something they relentlessly do even when fabricated or manufactured because it adds to their social credit victim score. "We need to call this behavior and these people out while supporting deserving game journalists. I choose to stand up for my fellow game journalists and talk about this issue. Change needs to happen," end quote. That's an example of overlapping victimhood spheres. Girl from Canada is a gaming journalist, one sphere, or so they try to make it seem. A woman, another sphere. And then looped in people of color, yet another sphere, but one that is fragmented and divided, as we will soon discover. Problem is, these spheres and their support of one another against all adversaries are not ubiquitous. Zombie Kills, on her vocal pathway to maximum personal victimhood, would say things like, quote, "The face I truly make when any white woman is about to get her ass beat to sleep," end quote. Well, Girl from Canada reacted to this and then took it down, but the damage was already done. People saw this reaction as diminishing a superior victim, and the wolves just began to feast. The accusations started flying. The people who were once on her side against the evil male gamers turned towards Zombie Kills and started backing her. And Girl from Canada became the enemy. She really did. She apologized, but promptly deleted her entire account under the strain. Overall, it's a fast-paced, clear-cut example of eating your own, because your own didn't agree with you enough or put you on the highest pedestal. Of course, someone like me is probably a much more appealing target for most of them, but people like me have learned over the years how exactly to interact with that type of person, which is critical from afar, but never, ever associated with. Girl from Canada became a casualty in the social media battle, the ongoing social media battle for largest victimhood sphere, and life went on. Except, no it didn't. Zombie Kills, for some reason, I can't find the actual inflection point here where it all began, started to get hit from all sides. It turns out, as the claims allege, that she had been manipulating and attacking people behind the scenes, and the largest accusations come from a fellow streamer who claimed that Zombie Kills had been privately telling friends that he was abusive to his significant other, when that was not in fact true, obviously, and the motivation behind it was to directly damage his career. That's the most immediate and actionably vile thing to happen, but it wasn't the only thing to happen. Another Twitlonger, because that's the format, tweet something like, "I've had enough," and then try to nuke your peers from orbit with a 15-paragraph social media bomb that is designed to maximize the hate mob against them. But yeah, another Twitlonger came out, claiming that Zombie Kills was herself guilty of colorism, I think, which is not to be confused with racism, or maybe it is. I've lost track, I honestly have, but the point is, Zombie Kills was herself prejudiced against a different victimhood sphere, not the one she was in, but a different one adjacent to or partially overlapping, and had been manipulative towards someone in that sphere, causing them to come forward. Here's where it gets, frankly, just completely absurd. The direct messages that got shared highlight what can only be described as the Olympics of I'm trying to maintain my own image as the more sensitive victim here, while also attempting to tear down your image as the more sensitive victim. And I won't read all of it, it's really, really long, but it's linked down below for anybody that wants to dive into it, and it's peppered with, "Your experience is valid, you are valid, and you are true, and I need to be held accountable, and I need to be considerate of the spaces that I occupy, but Also, none of that. I'm the one who's right, not you. The best example would probably be the following, which is a direct exchange between Zombie Kills and the person calling her out on Discord. Quote, I am actively filing a harassment report with Twitch involved on Monday. If you do not stop defaming me and rallying hate against me, I will release all of it publicly. This is the truth. I will take it further. Please just stop. I've seen every screen. I see what you're doing. I've seen it. Off-stream harassment is against Twitch TOS. Please leave me and my spaces alone. End quote. And then the response, quote, I've not once publicly came at you, ignoring the entire point about this being behind the scenes. I've defended myself within my spaces. You, on the other hand, have actively harassed me and publicly tried to defame and character assassinate me. Please do not contact me again. I blocked you because you continued to follow me, saying you were afraid of me, so I removed myself. And now you are threatening me. I drew a boundary and you are continuing to cross it. Do not contact me again. End quote. This is quite literally, you are harassing me, I'm the victim. And in response, no, you are harassing me, I'm the victim. My space is this, my space is that, blah, blah, who cares? Because you can't have two people hell-bent on being perceived as the harassed victim. It just doesn't work. Furthermore, a large amount of their initial disagreement that kind of spurred them into this situation is framed around a joke. Not a joke made by Zombie Kills, a joke made by Alana Pierce, who is a staunch advocate for various victimhood spheres, even going so far as to claim that the US government would revoke her visa if she criticized 6 Days in Fallujah, a beleaguered video game mired in controversy. Here's the joke.
Yes, hi everybody, hi.
Hi.
Who's
like, we're not
who's
on our
ahead?
stream
Who's
yet, but
winning?
you are on Alana's stream. So
Hi.
let's get out in front of this.
Right.
Got all your
when-
racial
how-
slurs out. Just if you were supposed to do them, you should have done it before the stream. All right.
Oh no! Well, I mean, I have a quota to hit. Where did I write them down? No, man, I must have thrown that out.
That is cosmic levels of victimhood right there if you can somehow claim that she has harmed anyone with that. And personally, I think her joke was absolutely nothing. Unworthy of outrage, unworthy of a laugh too, but really overall just nothing. However, that simple joke is being used to not only attack her by a great many people, but to attack Zombie Kills, and the cycle just keeps going and going. The results of this, there might even be more to come, I don't know, there probably will be, have been quite swift. Zombie Kills turned her profile private and has lost over 20% of her social media followers already. That will be far higher by the end of it all. Girl from Canada, who was actually calling Zombie out for some of this type of behavior a bit in the early phase, is just gone, and the victimhood spheres are at war with each other because the fundamental premise of this hierarchy, and it is, don't get it twisted, this absolutely is a hierarchy here, is that one group is on top and all other groups must recognize their superior struggle. Now, up till now, we've been discussing the micro, but what happens when we switch to the macro? Remember Twitch, bowing to the campaign largely spearheaded by Zombie Kills? Well, the New York Times has published not one, but 2 articles within the past week which take aim at Twitch and call it a haven for far-right conspiracies, and also claims that extremists are making thousands of dollars on the platform. The kicker? They found roughly 20 channels that in aggregate have made less than maybe $40,000 from the platform. And the biggest one got only around $30,000 at most. And the next ones get like $3,000 or $4,000. That's 20 new streamers in an ecosystem of like 7 million, I think, broadcasters total, who made a couple $1,000s, if that, from Twitch. And yet somehow Twitch is a haven for these people, or a financial lifeline for the worst among us. Here's the best part. Twitch has done more and faster than any other technology company to date to deplatform ideological opponents. You can call them extremists or supremacists or whatever you want, but regardless of your lens or your individual opinions on how, why, or even if they should be targeting certain groups or content types, they have been. They were the first platform to ban Donald Trump, and they did so by referencing years-old rally speeches in a way that made little to no sense at the time. Twitch has bent over backwards, aiming to appease the cancellation types, as evidenced by their banning of the PogChamp emote during its social spotlight campaign. And yet, for 20 broadcasters in 7 million total on the platform, they are attacked multiple times as a haven for extremism by their peers. Hell, one of the streamers that the New York Times focuses on most strongly as a glaring example of Twitch's failure has 14,000 followers. I have 24,000 and I haven't streamed in years. I played The Division. Like, I played Tom Clancy's The Division for like 6 months in 2018. Those accounts are nothing. They have no reach. They pose no threat. And yet somehow they are used as a weapon to brand the entirety of Twitch as problematic. While one woke outlet attacks another woke outlet for not being woke enough when they are, in fact, more woke than almost any other platform in the space. It is ideological cannibalism, and the explanation is very simple. Imagine a line of people, left to right. On the far left, they love accountability and think that throwing stones at anyone who they believe is mean or prejudiced is the correct thing to do. On the right, there are people who disagree. And then some of them do, in fact, have harsh and incorrect beliefs about superiority or equality and tolerance. The people on the left throw stones collectively at every target that they can find on the right. Over time, they have less and less of those targets, or the targets that they do have take measures to protect themselves from the stones. They hide, they put up a barrier, you name it. They just make sure they're not getting hit by stones constantly. Eventually, there are no more easy targets, really there aren't, and the stone throwers have to look closer and closer to their own group in order to land those shots. There is only one logical conclusion to all this, and it's already beginning to happen. At a certain point, they are not able to find adequate targets fast enough, or more likely, much more likely, the effort, research, and discipline required to get or even damage a deserving target becomes too much or too uncommon, and they start to just take the easy shots that they can find close to home. Ultimately, the group that was collectively bombarding their opponents in the beginning fractures and falls apart as they pick targets within that very same group, justifying those new targets with twisted logic and false narratives, while desperately trying to make sure that they maintain their own individual subjective position on the side of those who get to throw the stones, never wanting to be the ones who have to get hit. Effectively, the wokes are eating each other. It's inevitable, it will continue, definitely, and it's currently most prominent, at least as far as I can tell, in the gaming space. I can't say I'm sad, but I wanted to talk about it, so there it is. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below, primarily Odyssey, which is a YouTube platform alternative that treats creators very well. Also Locals, $5 a month will help offset the volatility of YouTube advertising. And you can also get ad-free uploads and audio podcast versions of all the videos as well. There's another gaming YouTuber to check out, merch, social media, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.